Hey folks, welcome back. Well, got another build with you this time. I'm afraid no battle reports, and it might not be for a while. I've just phoned up my hall where I rent to obviously run my gaming club, and unfortunately they're not even looking to open until September, so I'm just going to rely on going over to friends' houses to try and get some battle reports in over the next couple of months and see how it goes from there. In the meantime, I'm just doing some building things. I mean, I have been on Universal Battles, but it doesn't make for a great visual effect when you want to do a battle report and that. It can be quite hard to tell what unit's what, unless both people have membership to it. I have, but a lot of the other players that I play with don't, so we kind of use stand-ins for some of the models, so it doesn't really work out for people who want to watch and try and understand playing fantasy. But if you ever see me on there and you fancy a game, let me know, or just message me anyway. I'm always up for a game of 6th edition. The more practice I have, the better I'll be getting back into it. It's been a long time since I've really got into 6th edition. So in the meantime, I shall leave you with this building a ruins. Ideally, this is going to be set up for my own Mordheim table. It's just that cereal box card, so nice, cheap and easy. So I'm just marking out here what I want to cut, and for this I'm doing slightly bigger than the Games Workshop card buildings. This is mainly because I want to be able to move models around on the inside easier. So each of my levels are 75mm tall. Width of it is, you can decide whatever you like. I'm just assuming they're bigger buildings, manor houses, stuff like that, have taller ceilings and whatnot. But it just makes it easier to move models around. And if you can also see on the top side of this, I've also left space for a tab. And basically I won't cut all the way through on the tabs, and I'll fold them over as you'll see later on, and it just gives it so much more strength, and it'll also hold the first floor up as well. So as you can see, this is just it cut out. I've got tabs on the sides. This will attach to the other walls. When I do the walls that attach to this, they obviously won't have tabs on, and this will just stick to it. And I have one on the bottom to put onto a base, and one on the top that will hold up the floor and the first floor walls as well. So that'll work out quite well, and it does actually make it surprisingly strong. So I haven't given any measurements out because basically to make the shape that you want. As I say, it's just 75mm is each of my heights of each floor, and that's enough for a spearman to go around with a spear sticking up. If you've got pikemen, well, that's your own fault for having pikemen in a house, I suppose. It's a bit much, really. But as you can see, I've got two walls up, so the one with the doorway in and the one opposite it have both got tabs on both sides, while the new wall that's in between them that joins them, that only has a tab top and bottom. And I just stick it together using wood glue, white PVA wood glue. It's strong enough, and I go mad with it because I use it in the mix with the filler and stuff. That'll give it a coat, and I also paint everything in it at the end as well to give it a hard protection. So as you can see on the base here as well, it's all been made out of the cereal box card. It is really a bit too thin. You'll have some slight warpage issues with it. So what I've tried to do is keep a very small lip around the outside. So this is 5mm. Over 5mm you're not going to have much warp anyway. And the actual structure of the building itself will keep most of the rest of it flat. Once it's all glued together, it's pretty solid. I'll be adding some extra layering in the floor itself, some flagstones you'll see in a sec, which will start causing slight warps, but if you don't go mad with the PVA to start with, it'll also help protect it and hold it into shape. So as you can see, I'm starting to build up now. The top floors are going to be mostly destroyed, so I'm just cutting them wiggly shape down, a couple of windows to have. If you also see on the first floor at the front there, I've left a big opening as it's falling through. I've done this, I'm not going to put loads of rubble on it. These are going to be pretty basic. You can always add rubble to it yourselves, or add it in with its own separate terrain that you can move on and off it, just so I can get models around. This is made to be as simple as I possibly can, to get miniatures around it. I've also got a internal wall there, as you can see. This will help hold the floor that will be going in as well. Sorry, but as I said, at the front there, I've left quite a big opening because that's nice space there for bridges. So if I build any more of these, the first floor will have openings in, so I can put a couple of basic bridges running through from other buildings. And during this build, I actually finished this one and build another one just to show you, what multiple like, and I've kind of got one on the side all the time now. As for the flagstone floor, basically it's just random squares cut, just made a big pile of them, and then be careful because they can hurt, funnily enough. I scrunched them all up in my hand, so they've all got like really good creases in them, and then just flattened them back out and then stuck them down. And even though like some slightly stick up, when you go over your mix of spackle filler and PVA, it tends to fill in those holes, and it just makes it look like a slightly uneven flagstone floor. And when it's dry brushed, it comes up quite nice. So I've just finished continuing the wall around the corner there, as you can see there. So I've got another set of corners. More corners, the more strength you're going to have in this. The actual floor piece that I've put in here, what you want is like a rough shape, because what I'm going to do is use this to support 5mm strips of card, which I'll just lay down separately, glue them down, and that'll give more of a wooden effect at the end of it. But obviously it needs some support, so effectively you're getting 2 layers of card on each floor, and it is surprisingly, as I say, surprisingly strong and tough for miniatures as well, so it's not that bad. So as I say, 5mm strips, cut them down. I finish off the lengths at different lengths just to give it a more random look. Looks like it's broken through. Again, I've not bothered putting anything on the ground floor, showing destroyed debris in that. The idea is it's easy for miniatures to move around. I can easily put a ladder up. The other thing is, whenever you do this, don't give it too much of a floor above, because you're going to find it a pain in the arse to move any of your miniatures around, and also a pain in the arse to paint. And in fact, this one was like borderline on how annoying it was to paint. And when I do the bigger one in a minute, I really learned from this not to go too mad on each floor, because it's really difficult to paint through the windows, to paint in underneath, to get everything clean and tidy. Maybe if you've got like an airbrush or something, it'll make life a lot easier, because you can spray it all and go from there. So now what I've done is taken the 5mm strips and done it on the second floor as well, and just done exactly the same thing. So I put down a shape of card to begin with, just to support the timbers, and then put the timbers in over the top. On the outside, I've done a 10mm strip going round, representing the main structure of timbers that are holding the walls up. These I just put on the corners and in the centres. I also have one on each floor. It's not overly important how you layer these up, but I generally layer them up as you'd imagine them being built. So I have my uprights on the bottom first, then I have my one that runs across all of them, and then I'll put the next set of uprights in. Of course, I've also put above each window one that's been randomly cut up to give the effect of some form of lintel as well. And it's just a quick shot from the front here, just so you can see. You can also see the 4 lintels I've got there. Right, so I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but for some reason some of the shots didn't come out very well. So I coated the whole thing in a mix of PVA and filler. So what I do, I don't use ready mixed filler. I use powdered filler and then mix it myself. So I make it quite thick with water first, and then just add in a whole gloop of PVA. In fact, you can actually get filler with PVA in, and I still add PVA to that, because so when I say PVA, I actually use wood glue. White wood glue. I think it's Everbuild I use, because it makes it really strong, and also quite gloopy, so you can really dash in some texture on it. So when you slap this all on, you want to cover everything up. When you're going over the bits of wood, try and keep your brush strokes going along the lengths of wood, because what this will do is it'll leave your brush lines in it, and will help give more of a grainy effect. I still paint on a grain afterwards, but when you're dry brushing, it does help, especially because I don't do anything on the actual floorboards themselves. That is purely just being painted. And give this overnight to dry, because it takes a long while to dry, and then it gets to quite a hard cocoon. Then I go out with some black, and I'm using, just got to remember the name of them. It's Dala Graduate, and I buy quite a big tube. It's acrylic paint. It's just cheaper. God's sake, don't use Games Workshop paint or your Vallejo paint to paint these, for goodness sake. Just go out and get a cheap acrylic black, or even you don't even need acrylic. I mean, I've got a lot of my scenery is painted with household emulsion, because you can get it massive tins. Obviously, you don't need to go that extreme if you're not making a load of them. That's why I ended up buying the Dala Graduate black paint, and give it a good couple of coats. When you do your first coat, you'll very quickly see where bits have been missed out, because is the white shows through the black really easily, and then just thin down a bit of the paint and just covering all the holes you can. It's really important because you want a nice black base coat, because unlike normally where I build it up from brown for a more natural kind of look, I'm actually going to be building all this up from black, because in Mordheim the darkness of the black base coat works much better in my opinion. And here we're just looking at the front, so yep, everything has been covered in the mix of filler and PVA. Including the base as well, obviously not the underneath. When you're base coating, really important, get a good couple of coats of black paint on the base. You really want to protect all the card, otherwise it'll be really prone to moisture in that. So I think I got like 3, maybe even 4 coats of black on the bottom, because I'm not doing anything else to it. I'm just going to get a nice solid coat and then douse the whole thing in PVA. So here's it is painted. So basically what I did is just picked a colour off for doing the walls. I've got the upstairs walls different from downstairs walls. I've painted all the outside of the buildings the same. I started with a dark brown on the floorboards, and then I went to like an ochre, and then just added some ivory to it and give it quite a harsh highlight, and that seems to work really well. I pretty much did that method with a base coat, and then just keep adding ivory to it until you highlight right up. And as you can see, the texture on the filler is really good. It does give it a lot of depth as well. As I painted a wall or a floor, I actually just then covered it in PVA, and I painted the PVA on pretty much neat, so it was quite thick. Because what you find as you're holding it, your fingers and that will chip off the filler mix, and then then all your black undercoat will be gone as well. So once I've done an area, PVA it, let it dry, and then it's solid and it's protected, and you don't have to worry about it. Make sure you get all of the card covered, even under the floors. I know it's a right pain in the backside to do, but by doing that, you actually help protect the card, and it should have less problems with moisture. That includes with PVAing, so make sure everything's covered in PVA. And make sure, for God's sake, you've got a clear PVA, because obviously if you do all this and you've got, one of those yellowing PVAs that go with natural wood colour, it'll probably ruin it for you. So make sure you've got a nice dries clear PVA. So as I did each section, the actual timber work on the outside of the building, I went over afterwards and just painted lines in it just to give it more of a grain feel, make it stand out a bit. Around the 5mm outside edge bottom, I just used filler by itself and done the same sort of basic technique I use on all my miniatures. So I just dab filler down to give it a bit of a 3D effect, and carried on from there, and then flocked it later on. You might think it's a bit odd why I ended up flocking it, but I kind of like it because I can use one of these buildings on a normal table as just a bit of scenery to fight around for some Warhammer 6th or something, and it's not too much of a problem, and it doesn't really stand out on the tabletop as in Mordheim. I'm sure there's some grim green growing lichen and short grasses and stuff around it. As you see, it was all built up from the black base coat, and it's come out quite well, and I'm quite happy with it. So after I built this one, I thought, you know what, how big can I go with these? And I think you can go quite tall. Obviously, you're limited to the size of card you can get your hands on, and since I'm just using like a family pack of cereal card, it's a lot harder to what you're limited with. But this building here that I've just knocked up, that was actually quite big, and I was quite impressed how big you could actually go with it. I'd like to make a few more and take a bit of time on it and see what I can achieve with some of these others. I want to borrow down probably 8 or so of these buildings. I think that'll fill up a 4x4 quite happily. There's loads of different layers. I can easily make up some what do you call them, ladders and stuff, just to climb from different layers that you can put in afterwards, and I think the overall effect will look cool. As you can see on this one again, on the first floor, you can just see it on the right hand side there. I've just made an opening, and that I can make a bridge then to the other one, and I can do that also at the back as well, so I can start bridging up to other places and make Mordheim feel more levelly. That's one thing you always tend to miss if you're in Mordheim. You want to be running up and down. So I actually get this one finished, and we'll just have a quick look. So this other one was built exactly the same way. Same black undercoat, same layers. And I'm hoping just to do a couple of these. The actual little bridge there, that one was just made out of coffee stirrers, just cut to size, and it's the length of a coffee stirrer. I managed to pick up accidentally a few more than I probably need. I think I picked up about 2,000, but I'm sure there's shitloads of barricades and stuff like that I'll be able to use these on in the future. But as you can see, I think these two work out really well, and I think once I start adding more to it, it'll look really good. Probably need, as I say, about 8 buildings would look nice. And the actual, let's say, mat, again, if you're interested, I'm going to be doing a review at some point. I slightly messed up on the review I wanted to do with it, but for now, all you need to know, it's P-Works, and I think it's called Darkberg. And it just so happens that I'd already finished the small building by then. But the actual bottom of it is identical in colour how I painted it to the Darkberg ones. It just blends in really well. So that was just pure chance. So I hope you have fun with these and get to make some yourself. Again, cereal box card. It's thin, it warps, but it can be useful, and it's cheap and fun to use. So I'll see you on the next one, guys. Take care of yourselves. That was.